Hello, everyone. And it is Monday night, so that can only mean one thing. We are back for Horse Center, the show where we interview the most interesting people in racing. I'm Wild Jamie, and with me is the amazing co-host, Swiss Army Sean. And our special guest tonight is someone who is very near and dear to my heart as a Beulah Park graduate and someone who spent my entire racing career in the Midwest. We have the unofficial king of Ohio racing, as well as someone who performs fabulously all over the Midwest, and that is multiple graded stakes winning trainer Tim Hamm. Tim, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Jamie. That's a more than pleasant introduction. I appreciate that. Nice to be here.
No problem. How you doing tonight?
Everything's good.
And we must apologize. We interrupted an important dinner, but that's what a priority he made for HRT is that he's going to join us and leave behind something really wonderful going on in there. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Glad to be here again.
And as I told you before we went live, so I've known Tim Hamm my entire life. I really don't remember meeting him because I grew up in Ohio. I was always a big part of Midwest racing, and you've just always been a huge fixture there. You've always been the top trainer everywhere I would go, winning a bunch of the stake races there. So I thought I would not have to research this episode. I thought, I already know everything about Tim. No big deal. I'll just show up and wing it. But I did a little research anyway, and I'm so glad I did because I learned so many new things. For example, I found this fascinating. Apparently, you raised Arabians and showed saddlebreds when you were growing up. Please tell us more. What's going on there?
Well, my parents raised Arabians, and the fact that I lived there, I was involved because those were our chores. So I got to know the Arabian show world at a young age. And then I did show saddlebreds from the time I was probably 11 till about 15. And then cars and sports and all the other interests you have as a late teenager got involved. And I kind of separated myself from the horse business at that time, other than my dad did have some thoroughbreds and we messed with those.
Okay, so in showing saddlebreds, were you riding them or were you doing more on the ground stuff?
No, I was actually riding them. I started like that. Yeah, I started at a very young age and I rode them. I had some 3-gated, 5-gated, those kind of horses.
Oh, very cool. And you've always had gorgeous ponies that you ride around, so that shouldn't surprise me, but I found that very interesting. So, as you said, you did not immediately have a path into horse racing. You kind of did various other things. Tell us about your time as a linebacker for Youngstown State.
It was short-lived. I played there a few years. Actually, my junior year, I worked for a construction developer, and I ended up working myself into a pretty good job there. So I didn't play my last 2 years. I decided to stay with my construction work and get a little experience through a work program I got involved with, and it paid dividends as I went along.
Okay, very cool. And that is where your life went next. You started your own construction company, which was very successful. So how did you decide to turn your back on all that and go into racing? It seems really kind of off the beaten path.
You know, I'm a guy that gets kind of bored quick. I started the company in 92, 91. We did a lot of insurance restoration work. So I love being on the jobs. I love the camaraderie of the team of guys that work for me. And it became a job where I would deal with the adjuster and the homeowner, and it just wasn't as fun as it was early on, coupled with the fact I started buying racehorses in 1994. So by about 2000 and got to do the math here, Jamie, about 2000, it was about 2006, maybe a little earlier. Actually it was 2003. I decided to just had enough horses built up to quit doing the construction and just go horses full time.
Wow, very cool. So I saw that you did have quite a bit of beginner's luck where in 96, you bought a few horses, but every single one of them became stakes winners. I mean, did you just think, wow, this is easy? Like, what am I doing anything else?
That's crazy. I don't know if I have talked to you at some point or you somehow got that information, but you're the first person that's ever said that. And I don't remember telling you that information, but that's true. One of those horses, well, the first horse I ever bought was 95. And the first time I started her, and I had no idea what I was doing, to be honest, she won by 13 lengths at Philadelphia Park.
Wow.
And I paid 13,000 for her. I was walking off the track. Some guy offered me 100 for her, actually the breeder, a guy named Daniel LaJaca. And I didn't sell her because at that point it was strictly a hobby. And so it spurred me to stay involved. And the next year I went and bought four, and they all ended up being stakes winners. And one of them was the foundation family of our farm. And I probably wouldn't have made it through the beginning years at some point without a horse called Rose Colored Lady and all the foals and goodness she brought to our farm.
Awesome. And we've got a comment here from Grandma Horse Racing. Jamie got the intel. I've been told by multiple people that I should work for the FBI. So
that's pretty good stuff. That's pretty good stuff. I'd be scared if I was a criminal.
Well, I have to say that one of my favorite quotes of yours that I found in my research was when you were talking about all of the success coming your way. You had done a little bit of pin hooking where you bought horses and sold them and made over $400,000. And you said you were just sitting thinking to yourself, that's a lot of 2x4s. I love that quote. And that's when you were like, let's get out of construction. Let's go horses full time.
Well, that's when the mind really started working that, I might be able to make a business out of this. And you're exactly right. And you found another, that quote was made by me. And again, you've done some great investigative work to find it. But that was a long time ago. And I got back to the office after the sale and thought, holy cow, how many 2x4s do I got to sell to, and then it just kind of planted the seed. And of course, as you know, the horse business is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. There were also days when I thought this is my last day in the horse business. So it goes both ways, but it's a fascinating business and it's one that I never get bored with.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's hard to get bored with racing. It's either thrilling or heartbreaking, never boring, never.
Yes, yes.
Okay, now something really interesting about your operation that I wanted to touch on really quickly is that you're partnered on 85% of your horses. That means that you own at least part of 85% of the horses you have. Now, most of the big trainers that we see own almost nothing. They're training for other people. So why have you chosen to do your business in like this completely different way that's clearly working out for you, but it's just very unusual?
So it was a business plan by necessity. When I first started training racehorses, I'm thinking, so how am I going to pull this off? I don't have any winners to my name. How am I going to get clients? I doubt they flock to my door and say, hey, we want you to train our horse. So I thought, well, I better own some. And then it just built into, as you had a little bit of success, I was able to pull a partner in here, pull a partner in there. And it just stayed, that was the essence of our business plan at that point. And as we grew, we just kind of kept with it. I enjoyed the ownership. I liked having more skin in the game, both for the benefits and the downfalls. And, it's real hard to fire your trainer if he owns half the horse. So I found that to be a really good idea for me.
Good point. I never thought of it that way, but I love that.
Yeah.
Is that strange then for the other 15% where you don't own any of the horse?
You know what? At first I had owners saying, well, do you take outside horses? But at this point, it's not at all. We've had Ed and Pat Pavlish. I've never owned any horse with them, and I get most of their racing stock. We've had some graded stake success with them and some stakes winners with them. And so those kind of relationships, built confidence and owners to send us horses that we didn't own any of. So yeah, at first it was, a little bit of a tough nut to crack to get the outside people, but at this point it's not, it doesn't hinder us at all.
Nice. And, one thing looking at your numbers, we talk about the beginning and we talk about where you're at now. You don't have really those highs and lows. You've been pretty consistent from the 90s to now. How have you remained so consistent?
Again, we do a lot in Ohio, so that's our bread and butter. And that program doesn't change a lot. So we have a pretty stable earnings. It's just creeped up a little. We had about 8 or 9 years with $1 million something in earnings. And I think we had 7 or 8 with 2. Now we've had a couple years with 3+. So, going into the future as we develop, I want to cut our numbers just a little and up the quality, hopefully to, just keep edging up with a few less horses and a little more quality. But it's just been not a great change at one time and kind of following the same path and tweaking it as we go.
Yeah, and the last 2 years were the first 2 years that you were over 100 wins for the year. Correct.
And then, that's a side effect of two things. One, we've had a few more horses. When the COVID went through, the 1 year we had 115 babies. So, when you have 115 babies, you're going to you better win a few more races the next couple years. And we've tried to maintain that. And but I think that's what started it the year we had a whole bunch of 2-year-olds.
And then talk about 2020 with your second place Breeders' Cup finish with Day Out of the Office.
Yeah, that was a phenomenal run. We really enjoyed having that horse. It's a Sienna Farm partnership filly who we do 5 or 6 2-year-olds with them every year. Another, as you mentioned, partnership that we do. It was a fantastic run. We knew she was special early on, and she won every race except the Breeders' Cup her 2-year-old year, and she ran second there. So it was, a lot of fun, and it lights that flame where that's what you want to do, and hence that's where I said I'd like to have a few less. I mean, we have probably 170 or so in training now. Just up the quality a little, and just have a few less and try to get back to those spots. Those horses take a lot of time and effort by our whole team, so you want to leave enough of that to hopefully develop some more of those.
Explain that day and experience where now you're not there as a fan, you're not there as a trainer, you're there and you have a horse running. Explain the difference and explain that to somebody who we'll never get there, but we're trying to, have that experience.
I'll say this: we've had some horses that could have ran in there before, and I always said I'm not going to run in the Kentucky Derby or the Breeders' Cup unless we are legitimately live. I mean, early on in your career, that might be fun to just show up and watch, but after you've been around and you've shipped horses and you've come back with your tail kicked in, it's not very fun to just show up and run to me, no matter what race it is. So it starts with that. I knew we had a very live horse. It was just a great experience. We had a hell of a team, and we still do have a heck of a team. There was a lot of people involved with that. So it was just a great experience for our team. It was the pinnacle of racing for me. And I always thought if we made the first big race we'd probably make it to would be if it goes as my career went, would be the 2-year-old Breeders' Cup filly race. And it just played out as that. We've always had, if you look at our success in stakes and 2-year-old races in particular, we've done extremely well for us with 2-year-old fillies, and it just happened to be that's how it turned out. So it was, gratifying. It kind of vindicates that the hard work everybody puts in. And again, anyone with that number of horses has a team. It's not any one person, but they can all look up and be proud and say, hey, we can get there. So now it's when can you get back? So it was great.
Now you're primarily running at Tampa Bay and Mahoning Valley right now, right?
Correct. That's correct.
Now what is it, just the quality of horse which determines which horse goes where?
Well, no, Mahoney and I've got the quality of horse matters some, but it's mostly some Ohio breds and some of our horses we want to kind of run in some claiming races and move through the system. So when the oncoming 2-year-olds come in May and June, that we've got room for them and we can concentrate on them. And, the horses they claim are productive horses, but again, if you don't get some of them moved on, you end up with too many. So we kind of divide them up that way. And at Tampa, it's a great surface, both turf and dirt. Great weather, without saying, and it's close to. We have a training center in Ocala. We used to go to Miami for about 13 years, and it was just I might as well have been in another country because the trip from Miami to Ocala didn't happen enough for me. So being in Tampa, I'm back and forth, 4 or 5 times a week. So it works out great.
Yeah, and we here have to thank you at HRT because I selfishly use your booth every day that you're not there to go set up and take pictures and do footage. So thank you for that.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. It's getting some use and couldn't be used better.
Yes. And okay, so you were talking a little bit about how many babies you had during COVID, but you've always been known for having tons of babies and breaking babies. How did this become your niche? I know you have like a brother who's involved in breeding, correct?
He is. My brother was a Warren police officer about the time I was getting out of construction, and he was working in the more crime-infested areas of the town we lived in, which was Youngstown, Ohio, because he was young, and all the young guys got the tougher beats. And we talked one night, and he had been shot at and trapped and this and that. And I said, man, you better get out of there while you can. So he came to work for me, trained with me for approximately 10 years. Then he went to TaylorMade. He was their farm manager. He bumped around a little, and he's currently at Three Chimneys. He's been there a few years, and he is their racing manager. So he got his start with us. We do a lot of business together to this day. We, of course, do some stuff with Three Chimneys. We still do stuff with TaylorMade, and we also have a partnership called String Music that he's involved with. So, yeah, we do a lot together still, and that's how we started.
Very cool. And I just have to say that I know tons of people who work for you who have been there forever, and it's great. People love working for you, Tim. You've got a great operation there, both for the horses and for the people. A few quick comments. Let me catch up on here. From Grandma Horse Racing, he can definitely relate to us blue-collar handicappers. Yes, it's good to hear from someone who didn't grow up with a silver spoon in their mouth, right? And I may have Grandma Horse Racing on the payroll here asking this question. How do you pick a jockey? So we can know more. Maybe a good tip for Willie Martinez.
We build relationships with these jocks over time. I look for one that gives 110% effort every time. Going back to that blue collar comment, mistakes don't bother me whatsoever. I like to see, of course you want a good ride, a smart ride, but I also want to feel like we've got a 110% effort every time. And again, that comes back to the blue collar environment I grew up in. My dad was an auto worker. My grandfather is a steel worker. Youngstown, Ohio, there's not a lot of fluff there. It's just all, boilerplate things. So I look for that first. And once you get that, then you look for smart rides. You look for a relationship with the agent where, they got your back and you've got theirs. It's not one way. Like, you can't demand them to ride everything. If they got a better horse, you got to work with them and in return have them work with you. So, it's a process, but we've been fortunate to build some of those good relationships.
Very cool.
Now, Tim, you said about breaking babies. For some of the viewers that don't know, can you explain that a little bit more? And what is your strength to break the babies?
Well, breaking babies, that's a weird term because it sounds like you're getting on these wild horses and rodeoing them around, but it is not like that at all. We start with the weanlings. We get them halter broke, walking. When they're weaned, we go to Florida. They go, we teach them in the Eurosizers, the jog, be handled, be bathed. We put tack on them. Like as these 2-year-olds leave the farm in May and June, the yearlings will start getting tacked up and walking in the Eurosizers. And it's just a process. By the time we actually get on their back, very few of them do anything but put their head down and walk. So, but the process of breaking, so you getting on their backs, one thing, getting them we go from the shed row from the stall to the shed row. Then we take them out in the round pens. Have horses going opposite directions, so they see a horse coming at them. So when they get out on the track in the open area, and you got a horse jogging backwards to get to the, whatever pole they're heading to, they don't flinch from that. Then we go out in the paddocks and do figure eights with them in groups. Teach them to change their leads. Teach them to again see other horses coming at them. And then about 60 days in, we'll take them out on the racetrack, get them jogging and galloping, and then from there it's about a 26-week process for us to take one once they get to the track till they're ready to breeze quarter mile, which will happen in about April or May.
And where does the gate come into that, and how big are you with the gate training as well?
So day one, when our babies hit the racetrack, they walk through the starting gate. So it's very natural for them. So the gate does never intimidate them. They walk through every day, going on and coming off. And then we, about 70 days on the track, 60, 70 days, we start locking them in the gate, going in close, locking them in, letting them stand. And we're just now starting to break babies. Today was actually the first day we've actually broke some on our farm. So we're basically 1st of March. Not all of them are ready to break. Some are. But the gate comes pretty natural for them if you don't make it on. Last thing you want to do is get a horse fit like Godzilla and then say, now I'm going to show you this metal gate. That doesn't work real well. They're stronger than us. So we just kind of introduce it day one and let it be matter of fact.
So we see it all the time where some horses, and especially babies, have issues with the gates. What are the issues with those horses that they have those issues? Or is some just bred that way that it's natural for them to have issues, or is it something going wrong in the training?
Well, I would say it's literally, and this is an old adage, but 1 out of about 1,000 just has maybe they just have trust issues, period. Like some people, they're just not trusting. So, we'll have 1 out of 1,000 like that, and that horse becomes a project. But for the most part, I think if you do it every day and they become familiar with it, we've had very, very few problems with it.
Yeah, I have to say, I've actually been out to Tim's and I've gotten on some babies for him, and they were great. They were all so easy to ride. And yeah, everyone just like takes their time and lets the babies just, look around and learn nice and easy. It's a it's a great experience for them. And it was a great experience for me. So thank you.
But thank you. Appreciate the feedback.
And I do have to say one more thing, Tim. So you are not a social media guy. You're basically not on social media. Like, I don't know, you're the tiniest bit on Twitter, but not really. But I
Right.
found your website was so good. Anyone who has not done it, please check out timhamracing.com. This is so good. It has like little profiles of the people who work for you. It's got like pictures of them and your horses. I mean, it's so impressive. Like, I did not see that coming because I just think of you as like, nah, no social media, none of that. But you're up on the technology. That's very cool.
Well, thanks, Jamie. And I'll tell you, I'll give my son a plug here. He's give him 2 plugs. He's actually a quarterback at the University of Kentucky, so we're proud of that. That goes back to our football background. But also,
Awesome.
yeah. So, but also he created that website.
Hey.
Yeah, and I was shocked at how good he did. Now it's not 100% done. There's some bios missing off there, and there's a few things that we need to buckle down and finish. But it works well. It gives all the entries, of course, PPs, and it's very handy to have.
It's very impressive. Very cool. Like, I don't know, I wish more trainers had things like that, because most trainers are kind of off the grid when it comes to technology. You know what I mean? It's all word of mouth and whatnot. But I love that you've got like that setup right there. You can go in, check out the operation firsthand, and, see if you want to become a part of it. It's very, very cool. So props to your son on that. And that just makes me think, how do you feel about your son following in your footsteps in the horse racing business? Would you encourage that, or would you say, no, this business is too up and down?
Well, it's funny you asked that question. He and I talked about it yesterday a little bit. And I've never encouraged it because I think it's one of the most difficult businesses to actually get your niche and make a living at. So, and I think it's a little tough that way. So, but with the foundation we've set, I believe he's got a great interest. He's going to come work the sale in March. He's got spring break.
Awesome.
And he worked the sale last March, and and he owns some horses. He's saved up his money and bought 5-10% of a couple horses. So it's possible that he gets involved. I don't really guide him to that, but I certainly don't discourage it either. I'm gonna let him choose his pattern, because whatever you pick in life, you got to love, and you got to be willing to put the hard work in and the hours every day. But he's interested, and he's getting involved with me, and he may very well continue on.
Very cool. I hope I get a chance to meet him when he comes down. I've never met him somehow. So.
For sure. Maybe we'll take a trip to Tampa and let you know.
Yeah, awesome. I'll be there in the booth waiting.
Perfect.
So, Tim, do you have any young horses right now that somebody should circle a name that pay attention to?
I'll tell you what we've got that I can speak on that matter. I'll talk about the 2-year-olds in a minute, but I've got a couple of 3-year-olds that were big, gangly 2-year-olds, and we really give them time. One of them is Little Miss Moonlight. She ran second or first out. A Chad Brown horse come in that was a very expensive yearling, almost $1 million yearling. Beat her long head at the wire, and they were like 10 clear a third. Ran back on a turf and got trapped and got free late and ran second again, beating ahead. I think she's a really good 3-year-old up and coming. And we also have a horse, a quality road colt named Reinvest, who actually, you talk about jockeys, my jock Pablo Morales rode that one. And I said, Pablo, I don't want to run this horse till we can go a mile. He said, I worked him. Believe me, run him 6. He can win either distance. Took his word for it. The mile race wasn't in the book. Ran 6 and he won. He did it the right way. So I think that horse could be a nice 3-year-old coming up. And then we got an abundance of 2-year-olds I could sit here and tell you about, but it's a little early. I mean, I think we got some really nice ones. We'll let them develop a little more and let them write their own check there.
That's a good note right there, too. You're a trainer that listens to the jockeys. There's a lot of trainers that do not listen to the jockeys at all.
That is one horse for sure. I would have never ran 6 furlongs, and I did listen to him. I got a great relationship with Pablo. I've known him for 15 years or better. He's rode a ton of winners for me and stakes winners, so his input matters.
Pablo's a smart guy too. He's a good one to listen to. Oh, look who's tuning in. That's my mother, for anyone who doesn't know. So she's been around Tim forever too. She says, out of your hundreds of nice horses, do you have a sentimental favorite?
At this particular moment, I'm going to say no to that. I have had several over the years. Right now, I don't think I have a sentimental favorite.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, you've had. Sorry, go ahead, Sean.
What's your favorite all time then?
Probably my favorite all time is that rose-colored lady filly. She was my first stakes winner. And that's a funny story if you want to hear a funny story. So I had this 2-year-old. It was the second year I ever owned a thoroughbred. It was the one where Jamie said I went and bought 4 and they all won stakes. So I had this filly and I'm training her and I'm like, she's really fast. She's going to win this stake coming up in Ohio. I don't even think I ever ran in a stake before. It's called the Tada Stakes. And a horse named Darcy Girl had broke her maiden by 12, just kind of ran off the screen. She was in there. So I go to the paddock. I entered her in the stake, first start. And this jock, Jeff Johnson, who we built a great relationship. He rode everything for me at River Downs for probably 12, 15 years. He comes to the paddock. I said, you're winning this race. He goes, yeah. He never met me in his life. And he's probably thinking, who the hell is this guy? And I said, go to the lead and she'll just keep going. Don't look back. He said, did you read the form? I said, yeah, I read it. He said, did you see that horse that won by 15 and like set these amazing fractions or 12 or whatever it was? I said, I did, but I'm telling you, this horse is fast. So she wins the race by 3 or 4 or whatever. And he comes back. He said, holy shit, you were right. And that was the beginning of a really, he probably won 40 or 50 stakes for me. And I don't know how many hundreds of races, but Jeff rode a ton of horses for me. And that's how that started. So she's probably, and she was also, she had a decent racing career. She'd had a better one. She made a couple 100,000, but I really didn't know what the hell I was doing. So she had a better career, to be honest. And then, but all her foals, her first 3 were stakes winners. Her 4th one was Too Much Bling, which was the fastest 3-year-old in the country in 06. He ran 114 buyer. And then we sold that mare for $750 through the ring, but there was some stud fees involved with it. So it was about $1 million sale. So, you know, she really kept us in the business when times got tough. All her, and then of course, Too Much Bling, we sold 75% to Stoner Side. So just that family kept us in, and she's definitely probably the all-time sentimental favorite.
Wow.
So there's got to be some funny stories. You keep saying about when you were young, you didn't know what you were doing. So what do you look back now when you first started training and just shake your head at and go, I can't believe I did that?
Well, I'm going to tell you, so I learned how to train by default. So we're training all these horses, bam, 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 running, doing okay. And then I had a guy that owed me a bunch of money, and he had 12 horses in my shed row. And after about 3 months, I mean, it was quite a bit of money, 40, 50,000 back then. But I said to my brother, I said, walk those horses until I tell you different. He goes, okay. So we started walking them, and I kid you not, I think we ran 15 starts for him and win 13 of them. And so I go to my brother. I said, do you think we're overtraining a little bit? And he said, well, what are you talking about? I said, have you noticed? I said, what's going on here? So, you know, that was probably one of the funnier stories, but it really probably helped me a little bit in my career. So thank God that guy owed me a little money. And the end of the good story is he made one of those races. He paid me, and we became very good friends and business partners for about the following 15 years. So it was pretty good. Yeah.
Very cool. I love that. Okay, so you've had so many of these wonderful successes in various different arenas, from the breeding to the training, and the Breeders' Cup, obviously huge. You've had tons of leading trainer titles, et cetera, et cetera. What are you the most proud of in your career? Like, what really stands out to you as like, wow, I feel so good about this one particular thing?
You know, Jamie, I think for me, it's kind of weird, but it's like the everyday grind of providing employment for a lot of people over a lot of years. I take that very seriously. I mean, some people don't realize when people are working for you, they have a family back home depending on their check every week and their stability. So whether it was construction or horses, I think the most satisfying thing to me is knowing you can tell somebody something and doing the work to back it up and keep your word to them. So that's important to me. And out of all of it, that's probably the most satisfying.
Oh, that's great. That is such a good answer. And now let's flip things over a little bit. What do you think is the hardest part of your job?
Well, for years and years, it was the extensive travel. I mean, never being home, missing a lot of stuff with kids as they're growing up that you don't want to, even though I made a huge effort. I'm a big family person with my children, and I made a huge effort to be there as much as possible. But if there was any tough spots, it was just the things that you just couldn't be there for every single time.
Sure. We got one more question here. Sorry, Sean, I kind of jump in front of you here. From John De Silva. He is a very underrated with 2-year-olds. How many juveniles do we have to look forward to this year? Just give us a guesstimate.
We have 60.
Oh, okay.
So we have decent. I mean, it's down from the 115, but that was right. By design. We tried to cut it back a little, but we have 60.
All right, so we've got a lot to pick from. Good.
We got a few shots to fire. Hopefully one of them sticks, right?
Yeah.
And that's always a question we ask trainers. Out of all those horses that you have, how often do you see each horse?
I see the 2-year-olds about 4 days a week at least. There's a few days I'll go to Tampa, and Sundays I don't go around and see all the 2-year-olds every Sunday. But depending on where we're at, I try to see all the horses. In the summer, we get pretty spread out. It might be once a week on some of them, but for the most part, I'll see them 3-4 times a week.
And I'm guessing, like, when your horses are running Mahoning, you're just bringing the video up and watching.
Correct. The Mahoning horses don't get quite the attention in the winter that the horses do in the summer and the other strings, but I do watch all the races, talk to the assistants and sometimes the jockeys beforehand. But yeah, I watch them all, and I watch the replays, and we always talk before and after, and the whole nine.
Sean, where would you rather be in the winter, Mahoning or Tampa? And we've got a question here from Grandma Horse Racing. Tim is so grounded and worked from the bottom up. What advice would you give young jockeys? And I would say give young trainers as well.
Well, you gotta learn on your own. So like when I got into training, I'll go that route first, 'cause I'm more familiar. Everyone wants to tell you how to do it, and they were probably right for the most part, but what I always said is I can't listen to that. If I listen to that, I don't know how they got there, and I won't know, if what I did, my foundation was good or bad. I just know to do what they said, but does it really work? And do I know the whole thing getting there? And so we always developed our own plan, good or bad, and stuck to it. So then you have a formula, you know what to cross off, what worked for you, what didn't. So have your plan, stick to it, listen to the outside stuff with caution, and implement your own plan. I think that's important. And I would say that's probably advice for whatever business you're in. And it could probably stick with the jocks. I don't really know. With the jocks, I'd say I think loyalty is everything from wherever you're at. So if I'm a young jock, I want to be loyal. I want to be, again, honest with myself. I want to pick an agent that exudes those qualities and can make me excel with them and know how to handle success. And again, that's with anything. You can see football players, basketball players, trainers, jockeys, businessmen. A lot of people make it big, and then they kind of lose focus on what got them there, which was hard work and loyalty. And so I'd say, when you start getting ahead, I'd say in jocks, I see this a lot. You'll see a young jock lighten it up, and then all of a sudden they disappear. They kind of, blow the turn a little bit in horse racing terms and kind of, lose focus. But then a lot of them come back and get it right. So that would be my advice.
I love that. We got a comment here from John De Silva. He says you can always send some horses to parks.
Absolutely. That was my first win ever, was at Parks, actually.
Hey,
that's the horse that I bought that won by 12 or 13. That was a bizarre trip. One of my favorites ever, but yeah.
Very cool.
So what are your thoughts on HISA and the way the game's going that way? Well,
I'm all for uniform rules and medications. I'm all for, doing it right. The HISA thing, the only thing I would say about it right now is I don't think there's really anyone that has all the answers to it. I'll call HISA myself or our office, one of the two, with questions, and we can't get answers because nobody knows. So I think this would be a great opportunity for horsemen to get involved, get some input, and be on board with some of the change and some of the things we need to do as an industry. If they don't and they sit back and let it happen, we're going to again be on the outside watching this thing develop by people with good intentions but don't know our industry well enough to probably make some of the decisions or know the parts that go into it to make those decisions. So if some horsemen's groups would get involved and get some good input into it, we might be able to make this thing into something that's better for our industry. Right now, I've got very I'm watching with caution because it's just not uniform yet, and a lot of the answers aren't out there.
Oh, I love that answer. That is so well-rounded. I love how you included the fact that it's good intentions, because I feel like people are either, yes, HISA all the way, or no, HISA is the devil, absolutely not. And I love that you're like, it's a great idea, but we gotta do a lot to improve it, because right now it's
Right.
yeah.
Well, that's a good question too. Sorry, Jamie. And you don't have to mention names, but as bettors, we know some of the trainers that you just kind of think that, are doing it the wrong way because of their track record. So how hard is it as a trainer if you get beat by one of those guys when hey, they might not be doing it the right way. I'm doing it the right way, and now I'm losing to him.
That's a really easy answer for me because I've been asked that many, many times over years. Anybody that takes that approach, I say it's a short-lived business plan and not a good one. So people choose to do that, and people go, well, doesn't it bother you? Well, first of all, I don't know what they're doing for sure, so it don't bother me at all. And second of all, whatever they're doing doesn't bother me because those guys are going to have a window, and they're going to have a cap on their window. Where there's risk, there's reward, short-term reward in that case. And at the end of the day, it doesn't pay off. So it doesn't bother me at all. I mean, we have our business plan and it works for us. Those that choose to go the other route, it's going to be a lot shorter term business plan and it's not going to work very long and they don't get to grow it over time. So I've actually feel bad for those people that decide to do it that way, but it doesn't bother me whatsoever.
Very cool. I love the confidence. We got a comment here from Sean Patrick Nolan. I wish I was at Tampa right now. LOL, 11 days, not too far off. Love this interview with Tim. Much respect for him. Yes, and we really do appreciate you coming on, Tim. I know you're very busy and we took you away from a dinner, but we love that you came out here to be with us. So thank you so much for that. And I know I told you half an hour and we're already over that. Sean, you got anything else?
Well, I'll end it on a fun note and to get to know Tim a little bit more. Besides training horses, family, what else does Tim Hamm do?
Again, huge sports. Again, my son plays at UK. He started as a freshman at Dayton last year. I talk to him every day when he leaves training about his football, about the films they're watching, about the schemes they're putting in. I coached a lot of football in my day, and I just enjoy that a whole lot. So sports, vacationing, travel, and sports would probably be the main things I enjoy.
Nice.
Wonderful. And I got another comment I got to get in here from Terry Houghton, another awesome person in the game. It's always a pleasure getting to listen to Tim and reading articles about him. His knowledge and success in the business is remarkable. Yes, very true. We really appreciate you coming on and sharing some of your knowledge with us, Tim. You are one of the best in the business. And like I said, you were like my idol growing up in the Midwest. I was training like 2 horses and I would just see you out there all the time and be like, maybe one day, but I guess it wasn't in the cards for me, but now I get to interview you. So that's good for me.
Thank you guys so much for the kind words and letting me be on your show.
No,
Absolutely.
Thank you. You have a good night and get back to your dinner.
Thanks a lot, guys. Enjoyed it. Thanks.
Have a good one. Bye. Aw, he's great, huh?
Yeah, definitely. I know the name and stuff like that, but again, I don't know the person at all. You've gotten to meet him and stuff like that, but yeah, he was definitely, sometimes we bring trainers on and they're not a great interview and they're kind of laid back and boring and they don't give you much. He's not that. He's very successful and very entertaining and very knowledgeable and willing to share it.
Yes, absolutely. No, he's very personable, a people person. Every time I hang out with Tim, I have fun. And I am so glad to hear that I am not the only one who cannot remember meeting him. I just always remember him being there. So I probably met him when I was like this tall because my parents were both jockeys and then trainers in the horse racing business we all were around there forever. Tim is a little bit older than I am, so he was probably already training when I was, a youngin'. So I'm glad that he doesn't remember meeting me either, because I was feeling a little guilty. I'm like, when did I don't know. I just thought it was Tim Hamm. That's Tim Hamm. Of course it is. Well,
do you know how many times that probably happens? People always feel guilty that they don't remember somebody's name or where they met him, and they feel guilty, but the other person probably doesn't know neither, right? Like you're saying here. So
yeah. It's crazy though, because like Tim and I are fairly good friends. So it's crazy that I have no idea when and where I met him. Like I'm sure it was in Ohio, Beulah Park, but other than that, all right. Well, great show. What else have we got going on this week, Sean?
So tomorrow, and I'm gonna butcher this name, so I'm glad you guys got to do the names of the host. I only got to. She's very excited to come on though, and I'm looking forward to this. Chasey DeVille Pomeroy. I don't Pomeier.
Is it
Pomeier.
French?
There you go. Yeah, because it's Louisiana too.
Yeah,
so
she is from Louisiana.
Yeah. And her dad trains too. So yeah.
Louisiana French is different from French. So I don't know if it's Pommier or Pommier, like it could be either way. So we'll find out tomorrow.
We'll find out tomorrow. And I can say by the comments on Facebook and stuff, her friends and family are putting a lot of pressure on her, really hyping this interview up. So it's that'd be a fun one. And then Wednesday, a name at Oaklawn, and she had a couple of nice second, third place finishes over the weekend at Oaklawn. Yeah. She's been riding for Dwayne Lucas, Dwayne Lucas, Michelle. So again, I hope I pronounced that name right. All the pressure's on you, Jamie, to get that right. But
stay tuned. We'll find out. She's super interesting as well. Like we've got a great week coming up. I am so excited for both of these interviews. We had a great one tonight. Like, I don't know. I love it every week that I'm here. I just, which actually reminds me, world out there watching us, you need to keep liking, subscribing, and sharing so we can do this all the time. So then I won't have to be going back and forth to my big girl job, and Sean won't have to be going back and forth to his big boy jobs.
I got like 3 other jobs that I get paid for. Let's just make it all one.
Yes, let's do that, please. All right, what else have we got going on?
Tomorrow, I'm not sure if Rich will be back or if it will still be Terry and Charles. It might still be Terry and Charles because I know Rich will be home tomorrow, but I'm not sure what time. They'll do Parks again for Tuesday. That's 11:30 a.m. Eastern. And then college basketball is going on. We're getting closer to March Madness, so pickswiththeprofessor.com. He'll do that. He's got a YouTube and at Professor Side's Twitter. Tournament's coming up, and also next week we're going to do that bracket tournament. I'll announce soon on just messaging me, and then we'll do random numbers, putting a bracket together, and then we'll pick a race for round one. Everybody will pick a couple horses, and that will be fun. See who wins that. So always fun to do the free content.
Very interesting. I'm very curious about this one. I might have to join in. I always wanted to do the Jockey Survivor ones, but then I just never did it on time. So, we got a comment here from John De Silva. Parks post time 12:40 starting next Monday. So
I'll have to pass that along before they,
before they.
Then they get really screwed up there. All the scratches will come in late, and that will really screw Rich, Terry, and Charles up.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, that takes us wire to wire tonight on Horse Center. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as I said earlier, please like, subscribe, share. You can see all of our little handles down there on the banner. We're on Twitter. We're on TikTok. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, of course. So please just share us on all the platforms. We appreciate it. It helps us with the algorithms. It helps us to grow and bring you more interesting content. Thank you so much for your feedback live on the show and for everything that you do for us on social media. We love you for it. And I hope you have a great night. And I hope that we will see you in the
Winner's Circle.
Winner's Circle. Good night.